The Rockets' recent playoff run made one thing crystal clear. They're in desperate need of a true number one option on offense. I actually broke down why I believe someone like Trae Young could be that guy in a previous video, not just because of his scoring and playmaking, but also how naturally he fits alongside the current core. You can check that out by clicking the link in the top right corner. But today we're shifting the focus. I want to talk about 4 superstar caliber players who could potentially be on the move this offseason: Durant, Giannis, Booker, and Jaylen Brown, and how each of them could fit within this Rockets roster if the team were to pursue a blockbuster trade. Now, I won't dive too deep into the trade mechanics or what it would take to actually acquire these players. Instead, we're looking purely at fit, how these stars would mesh with the roster, and style of play the Rockets have established. Under Ime Udoka, the Rockets have leaned heavily into 2 offensive principles: transition offense and pick and rolls. Combined, these 2 elements made up 40.8% of their total offensive possessions this past season. That's nearly half of everything they ran. This isn't just a one-year trend either. It's become the offensive identity of this team during Udoka's tenure. But here's the catch. Despite how much they rely on these 2 areas, the Rockets ranked just 24th in transition offense and 19th in pick and roll efficiency this season. That's a major disconnect between their system and their execution. So let's start by focusing on the pick and roll and how well each of these 4 stars perform in pick and roll situations. Let's firstly take a look at both their points per possession and their volume of pick and rolls per game over the past 3 seasons to get a clearer picture of how seamlessly they could integrate into this Rockets offense. Giannis has quietly been one of the most efficient pick and roll players in the league over the past 3 seasons. And while his volume of pick and roll possessions per game is the lowest among the 4 stars we're looking at, it still puts things into perspective when compared to the current Rockets roster. His 3.3 pick and roll possessions per game this past season would have ranked 3rd highest on the team, trailing only Jalen Green and Van Vliet. What makes this even more intriguing is that the Bucks ranked just 22nd in pick and roll frequency this season. A surprising stat for a team featuring both Giannis and Dame. So if the Rockets were to acquire Giannis or any of the other 3 players on this list, it's safe to assume their pick and roll volume would see a significant jump. Now, despite not being a 3-point threat, Giannis thrives in the pick and roll because of his unmatched versatility as a downhill force. If the screener's defender is a big, Giannis uses his burst and agility to blow by them and head straight to the rim. If it's a wing or a guard, he leans on his sheer size and strength to overpower them. Among players with high drive volume, Giannis ranks 2nd in the league in field goal percentage on drives, finishing at an elite 58.2%. He's also in the top 5 in free throw attempts per game on drives, showing just how hard it is to contain him once he gets that initial separation, especially out of a well-set screen. That's why Milwaukee often looks to initiate high pick and rolls with Giannis in transition, when the defense hasn't had a chance to get set. The high pick and roll is a cheat code for Giannis. It gives him even more separation from his defender and turns him into an unstoppable force barreling downhill. But Giannis isn't the only one excelling in this area. Just behind him in field goal efficiency on drives, ranking 3rd in the entire league, is none other than Kevin Durant. At 36, KD is still a lethal downhill threat, though he gets it done in a completely different way. While Giannis dominates with brute force and rim pressure, KD is the master of the downhill pull-up, especially out of pick and rolls. Giannis has made strides in that department as well. He's hitting 44% of his pull-up 2s, but he's still a tier below Durant, who leads the league in high-volume pull-up 2-point percentage at an incredible 52.3%. And right behind KD in that category is Booker, who's carved out a spot as one of the league's smoothest mid-range killers. Now, picture this. All 3, Giannis, KD, and Booker, coming off screens set by Sengun and Adams, 2 of the best screen setters in the NBA. In fact, among players who've appeared in at least 30 games this season, no one generated more screen assists per 36 minutes than Adams. With screeners like that, these stars would feast coming off the pick. Then the question becomes, who fits best with the current Rockets roster? Of course, it's impossible to predict what any trade package might look like, whether Sengun remains on the roster or if the Rockets can somehow hold on to him while pulling off a blockbuster deal. But let's assume both Sengun and Amen are still here. In that scenario, Giannis might end up being the best fit. Yes, Giannis, Sengun, and Amen all bring limited spacing from beyond the arc. But here's the thing. The Rockets' offensive identity is rooted in transition and less so in the half court. And like I said earlier, no one in the league thrives in transition quite like Giannis. He feeds off the chaos in the open floor and the opportunity to impose his will before defenses can even react. Now imagine putting a player like that on a team that also loves to run. It's an ideal basketball marriage. Giannis is already dominant in high pick-and-roll situations, but now swap out Brook Lopez for players who sprint into those screens in transition before the defense has even begun to set. Suddenly, the Rockets' fast break game unlocks a whole new level of explosiveness. Now let's pivot back to their half-court offense. Sure, Amen, Sengun, and Giannis aren't reliable from deep, but the Rockets don't actually need to reinvent their system. The biggest change? Giannis becomes the primary ball handler and offensive initiator. So those same Van Vliet Sengun or Jalen Green Sengun pick-and-roll actions you saw last season, picture Giannis in those roles now. And we've already broken down earlier just how terrifying Giannis is as a downhill threat, regardless of the defensive scheme thrown at him. If the defender chooses to fight over the screen, Giannis is a master at sealing him off, creating a 2-on-1 scenario where the screener's defender is left trying to guard both Giannis and the rolling big. From there, Giannis has the vision and skill to either finish the play himself or set up a teammate for an easy bucket. If the defense tries to trap him as he comes off the pick, Giannis is simply too sharp as a playmaker in those moments, routinely finding the open man and punishing the trap with precision passes. And if the defense opts to switch, putting a slower big man on Giannis, that's a mismatch he loves. If the big sags off to protect against the drive, Giannis can rise up with his much improved pull-up jumper. If the defender plays tight, Giannis uses his speed and brute strength to blow by and bully his way to the rim. This kind of versatility in the pick and roll is what truly separates Giannis from the other stars in this conversation, especially KD and Booker. Sure, they might be smoother shot creators off the dribble, particularly as pull-up shooters, but when it comes to making plays for others, especially under pressure, Giannis is simply on another level. What truly sets Giannis apart from players like KD and Booker is his mastery of leveraging his physical gifts, not just to dominate, but to manipulate the pick-and-roll game. He's not simply bulldozing weaker defenders to the rim, he's using his size and strength to seal them off as they fight over screens, consistently creating a 2-on-1 advantage against the big. That's next-level awareness. Now imagine pairing that kind of playmaking with a big like Sengun, arguably one of the best short-roll decision-makers in the league. That synergy becomes even more vital considering how often defenses try to trap Giannis coming off screens. Add to that a high IQ cutter like Amen, who times his movements from the weak side corner or dunker spot to perfection, capitalizing the moment his defender glances away for even a second. Suddenly, the concern about their lack of three-point shooting fades. Why? Because you're now stacking elite basketball minds, players who not only thrive with the ball in their hands, but instinctively enhance each other's strengths. Surround them with two capable shooters to space the floor, and you've quietly built the answer to your half-court offensive struggles. And that's without even diving into the potential of a Sengun-Giannis pick-and-roll with Sengun as the initiator and Giannis barreling down the lane as the roll man. Sengun, who, by the way, hasn't just been the Rockets' top pick-and-roll initiator this season, but also ranked in the top 5% league-wide in points generated per possession as the initiator, something I broke down in detail in a previous video. So if you're curious, feel free to check it out by clicking the link in the top right corner. The offensive possibilities with Giannis in the mix are endless, and that's what makes this offseason so intriguing. If the Rockets manage to pull off a trade for Giannis, the big question then becomes, who do they have to give up, and how does that reshape the team? Whatever happens, whether it's Giannis or another big-name addition, you can count on me to break it all down. I'll be here with the full analysis. Until then, thanks as always for tuning in. I appreciate every bit of your support, and I can't wait to dive into more film with you next time.
Giannis splitting the D.
Play off each other.
Back pass. Play
off each other.